Pastor's Corner devotional. And in this devotional series, we're looking at the various attributes of God, what they mean for us, and how can we demonstrate those attitudes or attributes to others. So we're going to transition into talking about the essence of who God is. And part of that is to understand that God is omnipresent. It's a word that we use a lot in the Christian circles, that God is everywhere at all times, omnipresent. So the essence of God is that He is everywhere. He is omnipresent. God is present everywhere. He's not limited by time or by space. He is equally present. That means all His attributes, all of His abilities, all of who He is in all places at all times. And in order for us to really experience God, the question is not so much as inviting God to be somewhere, but the very notion that we just need to tune ourselves a little bit better to be aware and to be alert and to appreciate the fact that God is already there, that God is already doing something there, that God is already active there, that God is already present there. So it's not so much of us inviting God into a place, but acknowledging the fact that He is already in that place. And it's a retuning, a recalibration for our own minds to think. So I'm going to read for you some Bible passages that reaffirm and talk about God's omnipresence. Psalm 139, verses 7 to 12. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. This psalm is great. Just again talking about that God is everywhere. Where can I go that you're not? Right? Jeremiah 23, verses 23 to 24 says, "Am I only a God nearby, declares the Lord? Am I not a God far away? Who can hide in secret places so that I cannot see them, declares the Lord? Do not I fill heaven and earth, declares the Lord?" I just like that image is where can you really go where God can't see you? Even if you think you're doing something in secret, God is there. He can see. He is present. Acts 17, verses 24 to 28 says, "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. And He is not served by human hands as if He needed anything. Rather, He Himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man He made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and He marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He is not far from any one of us. For in Him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said, we are His offspring." Again, just this image of a God who is there. If we seek Him, we'll find Him. He's already there. He is already present. Colossians 1, verses 15 to 20 says this, "The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in Him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. Whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything He might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him, and through Him to reconcile to Himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross." This is an amazing picture that God created everything. Everything holds together because of God, because He is present. I have some questions for us to consider as we dwell and understand the omnipresence of God. The first thing is, do you ever feel alone or abandoned by God? I mean, if God is always there, why do we sometimes feel alone and abandoned? What needs to happen maybe in our own thinking that God has never really left a certain place? He's never really left us. Do we secretly sin thinking that no one else will see or know about it? You know, those sins that we do behind closed doors that no one else sees? Well, if God is there, He definitely sees. Do we feel that we have to be in a certain place to really connect with God? A lot of times we need to feel that we can go to a holy place, a sacred place. And while there is some truth to that in terms of our own expression as humans, God is everywhere. So, does a sacred place have to be in a church building? Or is God also in the car, in the passenger seat as you're driving or commuting? Is God also in the nature walk that you take? Or is God can you only really connect to God in sacred spaces? And sometimes for us, is there a fear that we have of going to certain places? You know how we are afraid to go to bad neighborhoods, or we're afraid to go to bad environments. We like to go on good vacation spots, but we're afraid to go into the slums of a developing nation. God is everywhere. So should we be afraid to go into ghettos? Should we be afraid to go down into the slums of a developing nation? Because God is there. What does that mean for us? And what would our life or faith be like if God really wasn't omnipresent? If God was not everywhere at all times, what would that really mean for us? How would that really affect our faith in our life? Some things for us to think about in how we interact with others. Are you ever not really present with certain tasks or responsibilities or relationships? Have you ever driven home but you realized you didn't really pay attention to the road? Have you ever been talking with your spouse but you're not really paying attention because you're not really present? One of the worst things I find lately between parents and children and even between spouses is that we're physically there, but we're always on one of these things, right? And we're never really present. So what does it mean for us to be present? Do we find that sometimes we believe things would not happen or would not get done without our presence? And one of the things that we always talk about in ministry is if it's really ministry, it will never rely solely on you. If it's really ministry, it never relies solely on you. So sometimes we have this belief that I'm so important or I'm so great that my presence or lack thereof means that it won't get done. And again, if God is omnipresent, things always will get done because it is God who does it. My question perhaps is this: who or what do you have the hardest time being present for? Are we finding it difficult to be present with our children? Are we finding difficulty being present with our spouse, with a neighbor, with a coworker, with someone in need? Are we sometimes really hard pressed to really be present? And the last question that we always end with is this: how does presence open up conversation about God and about the good news of Jesus? How does being present and the idea of God being omnipresent, how does this open up good dialogue about who God is and what Jesus has done? So that's it this week on our Pastor's Corner devotional. We'll see you next time. Love and peace.